Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4! And today, spawning in the northwest corner of the map, playing in red, we've got Aoe4, playing as the Delhi Sultanate. And his opponent in the southeast, playing in blue, we've got Numudan, playing as the Jeanne faction. Welcome everyone to Rocky River. Now I hope you guys are having a great morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Of course, all dependent where you are in the world. I'm pretty excited for this matchup, the Delhi versus the Jeanne d'Arc faction. We've got the Delhi, we've known them for a very long time, a civilization that's been there right from the beginning of Age of Empires 4. The Jeanne d'Arc faction, they're exactly that, a faction of the French civilization. And of course we have Jeanne added into the mix. What's cool about this matchup are the most recent changes, mostly revolving around the Delhi Sultanate as it happens, a civilization very much tipped for its feudal age prowess, typically getting a lot of units nice and early, nice and quickly, courtesy of the scholars garrisoning inside the production buildings with efficient production, increases their production speed by 100%, all in the feudal age, and then of course also being able to capture sacred sites in the feudal age. But things have slightly changed. I like to call it a recalibration. They've had some changes to their balance, and well, some buffs have been made to other stages of the game in, well, playing the Delhi Sultanate. Namely, we might start to see a lot more scholars on the field. There was once upon a time that the Delhi Sultanate used to mass up scholars. They used to be very, very powerful, and maybe we'll see that again. To be very specific about things, well, they've had a bit of a buff on their Dome of the Faith landmark, a landmark that takes them into the feudal age, with the scholar discount previously being 39%, now is at 50%. So you actually get, well, basically half price for their scholars. It's pretty impressive because, of course, what you love to use scholars with is healing up premium units. And guess what? I feel like the next biggest buff that they've had is regards to their war elephant. The Tusk attack now does area damage. So it's pretty powerful. I think a lot of people have been wondering, well, why do elephants not do any splash damage or trample damage? Well, I guess now they do. Now bear in mind, with all these buffs, you have to do something about some of the units. Of course, the Ghazi Raiders have had a bit of a hit. They have had their health reduced from 140 to 135. And that, I guess, in a way, kind of nerfs their feudal age. So there's kind of a bit of a play towards maybe late stages for the Delhi Sultanate. That's a lot of sheep, by the way. Holy smokes. You do get a lot of sheep on this map, Rocky River. The Jeanne d'Arc faction not opting for anything different today, which is kind of interesting because they have had a couple of buffs to their trading. Their free traders that would come out from the Chamber of Commerce, which unfortunately we don't see today, has been boosted the speed of production of those traders by 100%. So they come out quick time, but of course not too relevant this time. They have had a bit of a buff on their economic technologies as well, with a bit more of a reduction in cost. What's fascinating about this matchup is you have in one side of the map a faction which is pretty much well known. Like, we kind of know they're going to go for knights. It's what the French do, it's what the Jeanne d'Arc faction do as well. But I kind of wonder what the Delhi will do. We've seen recently in a casted game Beastie going for a fast castle, and it was an interesting strategy for sure. I wonder whether Wham will look to do the same. I think there's lots to experiment. I think the changes that have been made are a lot bigger than people think, and it might lead to some big consequences, because we have seen a lot of the times them going for the Tower of Victory landmark, and indeed it's going to be the Dome of the Faith, the landmark that has been buffed in many ways for the Delhi. Not to mention, their Castle Age landmark, the House of Learning, has had a big improvement as well. We very commonly see the Compound of the Defender, the other landmark that takes the Delhi to the Castle Age. But in fact, the House of Learning has had a lot of buffs, with the reduction in the time it takes to get those technologies in. We have commonly talked about the Delhi Sultanate having a bit of a delayed power spike getting to the Castle Age. I think that's one of the biggest negatives that they've had, and one of the reasons why they stay in the feudal age for so long. Because the Delhi Sultanate technologies are free, but they're not free from cost entirely, they cost time. It takes quite a bit of time for the researchers to come on in, and that was always a bit of a problem when you get to the Castle Age. A lot of other civilizations, when they get to the Castle Age, they research things and the technologies come in pretty quickly. The Delhi, though, considering they're free, they took a little bit longer. But now, with the House of Learning upgrade, or well, buffs I guess, the time it takes for those researchers has been markedly reduced. Now, with the first knight already on the field, making his way across the map, It looks like the Delhi should be well prepared. He has got a barracks after all, and has got spearmen queued up. Now, pretty cozy base for Jeanne, actually, as it happens, being able to wall and protect the gold. And a lot of this born down to the fact that Delhi are usually quite expansive in terms of making units, but considering the most recent nerf, actually, Wham hasn't opted for a stable. Not just yet, anyway. Understandably, because you're up against the Royal Knights, you really kind of have to make sure you're safe and secure. Speaking of which, palisades are being built by the spearmen, just to reduce the areas that the knight can potentially harass and raid. Jeanne has made herself into a woman-at-arms. She's moving up in the world. Started her life as a humble villager. Now, she wields a big sword. Can I just say how big that sword is? Holy moly, it's bigger than she is. Well, she must have strong arms. Now, it's going to be harassing that berries, but a lot of the berries have already been taken, which is a positive for Wham, that's for sure. At this stage of the game, you're really kind of expecting the Delhi to try and just be defensive. There is the upgrade to them, by the way. They are now hardened spearmen. And he's just got to make sure he doesn't lose too many villagers, or any at all, ideally. He's opting for an archery range behind this as well, so no cav... Oh, he's opting for a stable too. Okay, so it's one of each. We have seen this been played out quite often for the Delhi. Go for one of each and kind of confuse your opponent and make them struggle a little bit. The Knights making their way back around the left side of the map, but not real much joy they're having just yet. In fact, the spearman might get a hit or two, but Numudan is paying attention, which is, of course, an important thing to do. He's going to have to pull the villagers away from gold. It's causing a bit of idle time, but that's okay. As long as you keep the villagers alive here for the Delhi, that's really what he's preoccupied with and needs to do. Now, by the way, I would like to say a very big thank you for everyone who's been supporting the channel, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube. You guys are absolute legends. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Special shout out, of course, to the YouTube channel members and the Twitch subscribers going the extra mile. Appreciate you guys so very much. Now, I wonder where the Holy Wrath is going to come out from Jeanne. Possibly is. No, just going to head back, because, of course, the town centre is in range. And, I mean, Wham has effectively kept the woodline very safe for now. Now, Jeanne is out on the deer camp. That's the benefit of opting for knights, right? So whilst Numudan hasn't necessarily got too much value by actual destruction value, like killing villagers, he has actually managed to get some map presence and be able to take the deer camp on the map, which is very important because, of course, these units are very food costly. So he's going to need all the food he can get, as quickly as he can get. Wham pegged at home as it happens for now, and it means that Numudan should be able to get this hunt in peace. Speaking of peace, it's been a pretty peaceful opening to the game, kind of threatening here and there with the knights, but not really getting too much damage, and Wham, obviously, a big part of that, making sure he's nice, safe, and secure at home. Dome of the Faith, by the way. Let's just have a look at how much these scholars actually cost. They don't seem to be too costly. 65 gold. Only taking 30 seconds. Well, 30 seconds is pretty sizable, but yeah, it's a pretty decent discount. He's not really pumping them out just yet, though. But, I mean, all this talk about Vast Castle, and the Delhi are actually looking to put some pressure on the Feudal Age. So Wham kind of staying true to the Delhi Sultanate ways in that regard. Does lose a scout, though. Actually went for 3 scouts. Interesting. Possibly thinking about professional scouts? I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but the Delhi, they get the technologies for free. So wouldn't be surprised to see professional scouts come on in. Getting the extra food, which is fantastic because it delays a farming transition that might be needed. And maybe you can even try and steal some of the deer carcasses. It'd be pretty funny if you can. He has walled up on the west side, though, so it really limits the knights' mobility. And one thing to bear in mind about this particular matchup is, well, if the Delhi do eventually go into elephants, well, it's a bit tricky for cavalry civilizations like Jeanne to do too much damage. It feels like maybe Numudan has to actually do some significant damage early on before the Delhi can scale their army into the really premium war elephants that have recently had a buff. Now, blacksmith in play means that he's got the first upgrade, melee upgrade for free, Bloomery. Although, wait, does he have to research that now? Was that not for free anymore? That's kind of strange. Is that an observer bug? I think that might have been patched out actually then. There was once upon a time that used to come in for free. It's been a while since I've casted Age of Empires 4. Sometimes things can be a little bit dusty. 2 knights. We'll get some value. Get a couple of units, but nothing too major. Hasn't lost a single villager though, at least. Bear in mind, of course, the HP lost on these knights is a thing, but if he does get chivalry, the knights will heal themselves up. It's a technology that often pays for itself quite quickly if you can dive in and do some damage, which Numudan has been able to do. And there it is. Speaking of the upgrade, chivalry gets queued up. Right on time. But the army numbers really starting to escalate for the Delhi. They're reaching this critical mass where they can think, well, you know, we can move out on the map. It's something to be kind of conscious of. When you go up against cavalry civilizations like the Rus, the French, Jeanne d'Arc, you can't necessarily move out too quickly. You have to wait for a ball of army that you feel confident can, you know, take a really good engagement, even if they're surrounded. And it feels like Wham is already at that point, and he's going to continue scaling. A couple more units going to be added in. Now, these units are kind of a little bit risky, but he's fairly confident he knows where his enemy is, to be fair. So, yeah, now he's able to move out on the map at 11 minutes. And whilst it's been quite quiet, there's lots of strategic things to talk about, because now with the food denied somewhat here, it's going to be a bit tricky for Jeanne to move out on the map. So Jeanne typically does have that early aggression, early presence on the map, but the Delhi, you can see, slowly taking over, and just the sheer number of units is kind of crazy. And now, wow, I'm trying to get the Sacred Site. Won't happen in the end. I'm sure the Knights would, well, actually may. I mean, he might not even lose this. Yeah, he will lose a scholar, surely. Charge comes in and will lose a scholar, but he won't lose it for free. A couple of arrows getting hit with the Knight, but he manages to get away without too much damage being taken there. Obviously, chivalry is in play. Now, with the Knights going westwards, Wham takes the opportunity to attack. He feels confident being able to defend with the reinforcements. He's even getting the deer camp in with the professional scouts. It's such a really important thing to get, actually, for the Delhi, I think, these days. Because I've had a bit of a rework. So the reason why we're getting more professional scouts is because of the fact that they pretty much automated now with the scouts. They kill a deer camp and they task the scouts to get the deer camp and they just bring it back to the capital town centre. Previously, you actually had to shift clue them, and it was always taking a bit of APM to do that. APM, of course, being actions per minute, essentially having to manually task it, and it's always a bit crazy to do that. That's one problem about automation, though, is that sometimes the scouts, you know, they're preoccupied in their task and don't realize the danger around them. It can be a costly, painful death, as it was just then. Now, there will be coming a point where some of the players might be considering Castle Age, and it feels like it's actually going to be the Delhi thinking about it first, because you can see the food count escalating, and it's not something that, you know, these players are going to be floating food at this stage. I mean, not this quality players, right? Wham, Numudan, some of the best players in Age of Empires 4, they don't really float resources, although there's a couple of units there on the other side of the wall. He does delete a segment of the wall to get those units on the other side again, to keep them nice and safe and secure. And you can see this play here from Wham. He's really considering the Castle Age, because he's getting the static defenses. So, although I haven't mentioned it for quite a few casts in a row, I typically have a saying that when you're going to look to age up, there are a couple of things you need to bear in mind. Do you have a standing army? Wham says yes. Do we have some static defenses? Wham says, well, I was trying to get it anyway. And the third thing is, do you know where your enemy army is? And what Wham does is going to try and take the engagement spearmen, not really engaging cleanly with the cavalry, though. A couple of archers on the back line for Numudan getting some value and trying to pick off the spearmen numbers if he can, but good charge with the cavalry. He does lose one knight there in the end. There's going to be a bit of back and forth. He does lose a scholar. Meanwhile, Jeanne is getting valuable experience, and Wham's probably going to have to head back home. Oh, that scout. No, he picks that up in the end, and it's going to be the House of Learning. We talked about it earlier, how these upgrades now are going to take a lot less time to research. And so that's going to put the Delhi in a really nice spot. But I got to say, it's a bit risky, right? Because Numudan has been pumping out units. He's got a lot of those knights, and they are premium units. They're healing up as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Numudan actually push on in. So once he sees the tech up, the upgrades coming on in to the Castle Age, he could potentially dive this before the spearmen and archers become veteran units. And yeah, I mean, it might be a nice shout. We should see how much he's actually be able to extract in terms of value out of this. Wham, though, he's in no meaningful hurry to engage this. Understandably so. There's a tech up. Yeah, Numudan immediately moves the army there. He's going to dive on in. He's going to try and use cavalry to his biggest potential. Going to dive on that wood line. Villagers are running out of there. Archers getting a couple of shots, but they kind of tickle the knights. Spearmen brace. But a lot of them are going to lose their lives to the archers from the Jeanne d'Arc faction. He needs to take out the spearmen if he can. Cavalry can't engage clearly. Not until the spearmen numbers are down, but at one point he might decide to take the fight. Jeanne getting involved a bit on the back lines, to be fair. But the spearmen numbers really starting to dwindle. The restoration upgrade comes on in, or ability rather, for Jeanne to heal up some of these units. Spearman numbers really dwindling. Yeah, good focus fire from Numudan, but he's actually taking out quite a few archers at the meantime as well. Jeanne does get leveled up and uses the Holy Wrath on those units as well. Does a lot of damage. The knights are engaging. He doesn't care about the spearmen anymore. He's going to push on in and deal some massive damage. It looks like a fight that Numudan should win quite comprehensively. There's still a good number of archers, good number of knights. Only a handful of archers there, but look at that. The first of the Castle Age units for the Delhi. The Lancers are on the field. So they'll trade relatively well despite being low in numbers. But even then, the Royal Knights will start to do some damage on the villagers and gold. Eventually, Wham should be able to clear this up though. But he has suffered quite a few villager losses, 9 in total. That hasn't... I mean, that might still start to increase. Oh, Jeanne is... Oh, Holy Wrath ability on the villagers and gold. Massive uses of the ability. Well, this village is going to be very weak now. Yeah, the kill count is climbing, that is for sure. Numudan focusing on the villagers at this point, trying to extract as much value as possible, and he is thinking about going to the Castle Age himself. Jeanne barely alive on 43 HP. She's going to be able to ride on out of there, most likely. Big question is, does Jeanne and Numudan, do they go for the Royal Institute or the Guild Hall? There's a decision point to be made. Do you play for the late game? If you do, Guild Hall, certainly the better option. If Numudan's thinking about seeing the game out quick time, it's probably going to be the Royal Institute, but the thought process here should be really, where does Jeanne have an upper hand with? And the question is, in the super late game, I feel like the Delhi are a hidden gem now, especially with the cheaper scholars and the improved war elephants. I wonder if that's going to be a unit that's too hot to handle for the cavalry dependent or cavalry heavy civilization. That is the Jeanne d'Arc faction. The war elephants, of course, anti-cavalry as a class, and that's going to put a bit of a spanner in the works. But it will be a good haul for Numudan. Play that late game potential. And one thing to bear in mind as well, that keeps are a thing for the Delhi Sultanate. Whilst he's lost a lot of villagers, 15 in total, there is some bounce back potential. Good static defenses keeps are, of course, but they can also make villages for the Delhi with certain upgrades. So we might see that going for Stern, and that, yeah, that's probably going to be the case, right? Probably going to go for a keep or two. Couple of Lancers for Wham, just distracting, right? Probably not looking to get any damage out of this, but more just trying to keep Numudan off his case, out of his base. There's the veterancy on the Knights, though. Numudan not taking the bait, just splitting off the army, not just sending everything on that side. Oh, a couple of Lance. Oh, this could be devastating, actually. Might get a couple of kills, but Numudan spotting the risk, spotting the danger, getting some Knights on that gold vein to protect. Went for the charge there. We'll get a couple of hits. It's got a couple of arbaletiers, which will certainly help this fight. Gotta say, though, crossbows could be a nice response for the Delhi. It'll deal well with the French Royal Knights, and deal moderately well with the arbaletiers. Still got a lot of the spearmen, though, in the mix. And that's a great thing about the Delhi, right? Being able to wall palisade walls with the infantry is super nice. Don't have to rush out villagers to do it. You just send your infantry. But like I say, all the upgrades being queued up. Honed Blades going to be pretty helpful for Lancers, but also Man-at-Arms if he decides to continue making those units, really. Now bear in mind, the map spawn is quite nice for the Sacred Site, and there's a lot of deer carcasses that is bringing on in. They're in packs of 3 usually, but slowly but surely, I mean, Wham's just constantly getting this trickle of food, right? He's not had to place a single farm. On the other hand, this is a really hard farming transition here for Numudan. Quite a rough one, but it will get the economy rocking and rolling. Well set up for the late game if we get there. But make no mistake about it, not having to place farms really gives Wham the ability to pump out units. You can see it in the unit counters as well. The population supply for military is looking healthy. The population supply for villagers, not so much for the Delhi, having lost a lot, but that's about to change, especially with the keeping the forward position. Acts as a drop-off center as well for these berries. That's going to be very, very nice indeed for Wham. Now, the consecration has been used on the stable, or at least the landmark, the School of Cavalry, but also the town centre, reducing the food cost by 25%. Very nice upgrade, or very nice ability, I should say, for Jeanne. Possibly about to dive this. I mean, there is an opening, but it's a bit of a choke point, so I don't think the knights will really want to dive on that. Tell you what, that's a good number of lancers on the east side. Going to break through, and it forces Numudan to play defensively. It just feels like Numudan can't really break out, considering the number of units. And despite being behind on economy, Wham's military presence means he's not dying anytime soon, and he's got the ability to catch up. Especially with the keep now in place. He will need village fortresses, though. It takes about 2 minutes, 8 seconds at this stage. Well, the Lancer's taking the engagement. I mean, that's a bit of a bad fight there for Wham. He does try and escape. He probably will get away with a couple of these Lancers, and if he can heal them up, pretty useful. He's going to need some scholars to do that. As Numudan continues the chase. The question is, we're heading into sort of the 22-minute mark of the game. We have to think about the gold situation. Primary gold is usually expired by now, or nearly. Certainly will be expired for the Jeanne d'Arc faction. Obviously, very gold-heavy units they make. We've got to think about the 2,000 or 8,000 gold veins. There's 2 of them on the map. They're on the edges of the map, and they've both got each one respectively protected with palisades. So we could be expecting a late game, because when you have gold in abundance, you typically see large armies clashing, which, you know what, I won't mind at all. Gonna get the Mahouts. Oh, he's prepping. I mean, to be fair, you're gonna get the upgrades anyway, but getting some elephants now could be pretty nice. Now, the relic situation, by the way, has been really profiteering for the Delhi. He's managed to get 4 of them because of the quick tech uptime, and having plenty of scholars on the map is something that the Delhi do so well. He's even managed to get a second sacred site, so the gold is going to be super nice for him. He's going to have gold coming out of his ears at this point. Both armies just prepping. It looks like they're going to be... I mean, I think Numudan might be up against a Delhi Sultanate heading to the Imperial Age soon. I mean, look at the resources banked up for I'm about to say Papipur, but it's actually his brother, Wham. Looking like it's going to the Imperial Age very soon. But it's been a fascinating game. Lots of strategic talking points. Maybe there's more to come. The question is, what's the army choice here? If he does go to the Imperial Age, he might be thinking about elephants. He's got plenty of crossbows, so certainly would be looking to get the elite upgrade on those. We'll shred through the knights if we can get hold of them. A couple of Jeanne's champions added into the mix here for the army. Does manage to get one of the sacred sites at least here, Numudan. But certainly Wham's looking good for the late game. Now, whilst we wait for a clash of horns, a clash of the armies, we'd like to say, by the way, if you guys have been enjoying the content, and maybe you've seen a couple of the casts recently, and you would like to see more, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. More importantly, hit that notification bell, so you never miss another cast. I'm kind of endeavouring to maybe upload every 2 to 3 days, I hope. Just upload the best games, that's what I'm hoping for anyway, and try and keep up getting the best games out there for you. It will be the Palace of the Sultan, as the Imperial Age landmark, going to give the couple of the elephants there periodically, the elite tower elephants as it happens, which has a lot of damage output. We'll look at the stats when they pop out, but they come out for free. Of course, the rate at which they come out very dependent on how many scholars you have. You can try and snap a villager or 2 maybe here. You will snap a couple of them. I mean, it's actually going to deny the age up for a second or 2. I mean, it's okay because there's so many spearmen here now anyway. And the knights will go down, and the village will be building once again. Looks like he's broken through on the west side somewhere. Oh, just gone through the wood line, really. A couple of mangonels added into the mix. That's actually kind of dangerous because there's no real anti-siege, at least I've seen so far. There's the Imperial Age, and maybe, just like we saw earlier in the game, maybe Numudan decides to dive this. It's a bit tricky now, though, because, you know what, Wham's got a great standing army. I'm not so sure Numudan can fight this, you know. Sure, he's got a great economy in terms of villager count, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough, because partly it's countered by the fact there's so many relics in play for Wham. Villager count, or at least economic count, is not as big as you think when you factor that in. Yeah, Numudan, I think he's going to head back. Maybe go to the Imperial Age himself. Maybe a Red Palace would be pretty useful. Okay, it's a bit of a yo-yo effect, right? Numudan deciding not to attack this time with his opponent going to the Imperial Age. Well, you know what? Wham might not have the same idea. As soon as Numudan goes to the Imperial Age, it's quite likely Wham might push on out. Lancers versus Royal Knight. There should only... I mean, to be fair, the HP on these knights aren't very good for Numudan. Yeah, he's going to lose that fight. Does D capture that sacred site in the middle? Of course, Jeanne is able to do that herself. Not actually capturing it. We do see this a lot sometimes. Miss opportunities with Jeanne to capture sacred sites. But Numudan with a healthy military number now. He's now moving on the west side. A single archer. I love this play, by the way. This is so smart. Like, keeping an archer on the... This is really smart. Just to emphasize this a little bit, the palisades don't have much line of sight at all. But the archers being here, it gives the early warning system, right? Before even the torches hit the walls, he'll be able to see it on the minimap. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the extra couple of seconds means that Wham can get his army in position. Especially when you factor in most of his army's infantry, and they aren't the fastest moving units in the game. Not by a long shot. They'll snipe one of the lancers with the springles though. You can see all the upgrades coming on in. It will be a Red Palace. It looks like actually just injected a massive chunk of food here with the Guild Hall. Yeah, just now. And that's what enabled him to afford the Imperial Age. Typically done, by the way. They often do go for food. It's often the hardest resource for the Jeanne d'Arc faction to get. Because you need a lot of farms and the food cost for their units is so heavy. And now that it's cashed it in, it's going to stick with food actually. Sometimes you see them switch to gold for the late game. But there's the Sultan's elite tower elephant. The big difference is the hand cannon ×2. That's huge. You've got the regular tower elephant. It's got the 32 tusks just as the Sultan's one does. But it's only got 17 crossbow damage ×2 versus the hand cannoneer one at 35 base damage. Now granted, the tower elephant does have plus 11 versus heavy units. But, you know, the base damage just being so high for the Sultan's version is just so good for them. Heavy or light, doesn't really matter. The Sultan's tower elephants will do a heck of a lot of damage. Which is what the spearmen here were looking to do, but the crossbows are taking them out. Yeah, I think Numudan is clearly just trying to buy time here with his army, just forcing the Delhi to keep some units at home at least, to engage a couple of spearmen, a couple of lancers. I mean, would he have enough here? I'm not so sure, actually. Holy Wrath comes out for Jeanne. I mean, to be fair, I think it could be okay with the spearmen, but Jeanne is microing pretty well, getting the healing up, and Holy Wrath comes on out. Spearman numbers are still pretty good. I mean, he's being a bit reluctant to take the fight because of the crossbows on the way, and understandably so, pulls on out of there. There's so many resources being hoarded here for Numudan. This is a concern, right? Because sure, it's great to have a bank of resources, but he needs to be more active with his army. He's got 400, a full population, 200 population. The concern that you have against the Delhi, these elephants are so tanky. They get so much bang for their buck. Very population efficient. It could become a problem if Wham decides to continue this, because there's a lot of elephants popping out now. Gonna go for a bit of a skirmish with a couple of mangonels. Did get hit by a springald, but mangonels are in good shape. Like, not for long. The 5 springalds should be able to... Yeah, good pick-offs there. Picks off 2 mangonels. Wham, though, he doesn't care. He's pushing forward with using the army that he's got. Doesn't have a lot in this position, but has got a lot overall. 108 supply of military units. The elephants should be able to do a lot of damage. That's a lot of arballetry here, though. I think it should be clearing up here for Numudan, especially with defender's advantage. New units popping out. Jeanne needs to get out of there. Jeanne might get sniped. Just about. No, Jeanne does fall in the end, but I'm sure she'll resurrect herself immediately. That's exactly what happens. Now, he's getting some stone walls on the west side. He's already got some... No, just on the west side, the stone walls for now. The army's pretty much cleared up. All the elephants might get some value on these villages. Ooh, this is not too good, actually, because the elephants will snipe a couple of villages on the way on the east side. And eventually these will get cleared out. But now, with the villager deaths that have happened on Jeanne, the eco is kind of equalizing a little bit. Heading to almost the 30th minute of the game, and Well, I might be sacrificing... I mean, there's no real retreat from this, right? The elephants, despite with the upgrade, the Mahout's upgrade, they're still pretty slow. They will be taken apart by the arbaletier that's slowly chasing. What this does allow, though, is Wham to regroup, recalibrate, reset. Get another whole bunch of these elephants together. And Jeanne getting valuable XP from this. Numudan looks like he wants to get the game into the late game, but I kind of fear for that, actually. Because what do you do against the elephants? Can't go cavalry. Sure, you can go crossbows. Jeanne is up to the next level, though, which is pretty nifty. The trouble is, mass elephants, in a way, is going to be a really hard unit to kill, especially if you start getting scholars and bombards as well being added in to take out the infrastructure. Going to be working through the Red Palace before too long, I would imagine. What's the answer here for Jeanne? To be totally honest, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe bombards? Bombards could do decently well, but they don't come cheap, or at least the royal cannon they can get here as a potential. That's one option for them. The concern I have is the new and upgraded and buffed up elephants with their tusk damage now doing area effect damage could be really devastating. He's starting to add in scholars as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wham just cut villager production. He might even kill off a few, to be fair, just to make some room for some units. Go for a big push potentially. He's going to be waiting maybe for some upgrades. Still getting incendiary arrows, getting the third melee attack upgrade. He's already 32 minutes on the clock and he's getting the ball now. Well, better late than never, I guess. Trying to get as much food as possible. Has added in a second town centre just to compensate, of course, because of course, you know, you've got castles, you've got keeps here for the Delhi that were helping with the boom. But of course, no more villager production really needed for either side as it happens. Now we're at the stage of the game where it's kind of like, well, who has the better units? Looks like they're going to go head to head and just go for like an auto battler sort of approach. I'm sure there'll be some micro involved. Although with elephants, you might just have to just push on in. And it's at this point, kind of point that the guild hall comes into nice effect. You'll be building up a good chunk of resources. Has now switched over to gold, which actually, to be fair, Numudan is struggling with, as is Wham. Wham does have 4 relics in play. And this could be the calm before the storm. It certainly feels that way with this number of elephants. Wham continues to add them. That's a lot of elephants. 16 in total. Looks like Wham might be thinking about going forward soon. He's getting in formation. They are lining up, ready to go. And here they march out. There's a good number of bombards forward them. Go for the Red Palace? Because the thing is that, well, the bombards are going to have a lot of protection in front of them. There's no doubt about that. There's a 5th bombard as well. Wham, fully population capped. 17 elephants. 5 bombards. In fact, there's 17 just regular elephants. There's 5 Sultan elephants there, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. Sultan's elite tower elephant. Just 1 royal cannon. Can look to try and get a keep, just to reinforce a little bit. But you gotta wonder. These elephants do so much damage that this is going to be a hard hold. It's got plus 40 versus building as well, these elephants. So they could just do the sieging themselves if they really wanted to. You know what? He's added in a whole bunch of scholars too. This is going to be a hard hold for Numudan, no doubt about it. Jeanne leading the lines with the Jeanne's champions and the spearmen. Arbaletier behind, trying to protect the Red Palace, but that's going to go down in a blink of an eye. There's just way too many bombards here. And this is not looking too good here for Numudan. Loses the Red Palace in a blink of an eye. And do you know what? I mean, these elephants are nigh on impossible to kill at this point. There's just way too many scholars. This is not looking too good for Numudan. Down to 60 supply in terms of army. Jeanne barely alive, but does use the restoration just to heal up as much HP on these arbaletiers as possible. I don't think this keep goes up. The scholars just healing up all these weak elephants. These elephants are never going to die, although I'd say that. But a couple of have died. But way more Jeanne d'Arc units have died, that's for sure. The keep will never go up. Does delete it in the end, backs away, but how far can you back away, Numudan? The elephants are moving forward. There are so many scholars. He's moving on forward. He's leading the line with the scholars, would you believe? The elephant's kind of pathing, bit problematic. There's lots of buildings in the way, of course. There's a good choke point for the artillery. Maybe this could be a hold, but it's going to be a hard one nonetheless. Getting spearmen, getting artillery, getting the counter units he needs. But with this number of scholars, I'm not so sure he gets too much joy out of this. Finding it incredibly difficult to kill an elephant. Even just one. And slowly but surely, the elephant's chipping away at Jeanne d'Arc units. I mean, there's so many dead bodies, blue dead bodies, armor on the ground. Jeanne just about to go down. No, what, on 0 HP? Holy moly. Talk about timing there to get on out of the fight. Impeccable timing for Numudan, but unfortunately, the armor composition here for the Delhi is impeccable. This looks like it's going to be a way too overpowered composition for the Delhi. I think the devs might have broken this faction, this civilization. I guess the argument you have is that you can't let the Delhi get to this point. Numudan's let it happen. Wham taking full advantage of it. Got 104 military supply. He's coming with another batch of elephants. Bombards around there as well. And he's just going to take out the landmarks at this point. Working on the school of cavalry. Probably won't need to make his way too far forward before the tap up surely will eventually come in. The keep, I mean, this might not even go up. It might just, but is it going to be enough? Probably not. Is that going to be the final? Oh, God. There's 3 villagers tapping away. The keep might go up, but even if it does, it's too little too late. He's down to 28 military supply. Numudan on the back ropes. I think he's lost 1 or 2 elephants here in this most latest engagement. There's way too many scholars, way too many elephants, and I don't know how you stop this. Jeanne made artillery, made spearmen, and it just was not enough. And that capital town center is not going to be standing for too much longer. Numudan trying it. Oh, Wham's coming in for a get out of my game keep. Probably won't need it in the end, but you've got to make sure you win it in the end. There's way too many scholars, way too many elephants, and down to 10 supply. Numudan knows it. He taps out. A cracking game of Age of Empires 4. Lots of layers to the discussion in terms of strategy, but ultimately, are the Delhi just now broken in the late game? Let me know in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed this casted game. Take care, and see you next time.